Chapter 30 of Lotus Buds. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Lawrence Trask, Mount Vernon, Ohio, interfaceaudio.com. Lotus Buds by Amy Wilson CARMICHAEL. Chapter 30. On the side of the oppressors there was power. I have been looking over my notebook, in which there are some hundreds of letters, clippings from newspapers, and records of conversations bearing upon the Temple children. It is difficult to know which to choose to complete the picture already outlined in preceding chapters. A mere case record would be wearisome, and indeed the very word case sounds curiously inappropriate when one thinks of the nurseries and their little inhabitants, or looks up to see mischievous eyes watching a chance to see the uninteresting writing, or feels suddenly soft arms around one's neck as a baby, strayed from her own domain, climbs unexpectedly up from behind and makes dashes at the typewriter keyboard. Such little living interruptions are too frequent to allow of these chapters being anything but human. The newspaper clippings are usually concerned with public movements, resolutions, petitions, and the like. There is one startling little paragraph from a London paper, dated July 7, 1906. The ignorance of the subject so flippantly dealt with its only apology. No one could have written so had he understood. The occasion was the memorial addressed to the Governor and Council by Workers for the Children in the Bombay Presidency. Quote, "Society must be very select in Poona. There has been a custom here for the young ladies to be married to selected gods. You would have thought that to be the bride of a god was a good enough marriage for anyone, but it is not good enough for Poona. It is time that such writing became impossible for any Englishman. In India, the feeling of the best men, whether Hindu or Christian, is strongly against the dedication of little children to temples, and some of the newspapers of the land speak out and say so in unmistakable language. The Indian Times speaks of the little ones being steeped deep from their childhood in all that is most wrong. A Hindu, writing in the Epiphany, puts the matter clearly when he says, "Finally, one can hardly conceive of anything more debasing than to dedicate innocent little girls to gods in the name of religion, and then leave them with the temple priests." And another writer in the same paper asks a question which those who say that Hinduism is good enough for India might do well to ponder. If this is not a Hindu practice, how can it take place in a temple and no priest stop it, though all know? In London, religion makes wickedness go away, but in Bombay, religion brings wickedness, and government has to try to make it go away. This immense contrast of fact and of ideal contains our answer to all who would put sin in India on a level with sin in England. Christian writers, naturally, whether in the Christian Patriot of the South or the Bombay Guardian of the West, have no doubt about the existence of the evil or the need for its removal. They, too, connect it distinctly with religion and recognize its tremendous influence. But we turn from the printed page and go straight to the houses where the little children live. The witnesses now are missionaries or trusted Indian workers. There were 13 little children in the houses connected with the temple last time I visited them. I saw the little baby, such a dear, fat, laughing little thing. It was impossible to get it, and I see no hope of getting any of the other children. When I was visiting in S., a woman came to talk to me with her 3 little children. 2 of them were girls, very pretty, fair little children. "What work does your husband do?" I asked, and she answered, "I am married to the god." Then I knew who she was, and that her children were in danger. I have tried since to get them, but in vain. Everyone says that temple women never give up their little girls. These 2 were dedicated at their birth. This is only one instance. We have many temple women reading with us, and many of the little children attend our schools. There are not scores but hundreds of these children in the villages of this district. Here, certain families, living ordinary lives in their own villages, dedicate one of their children as a matter of course to the gods. They always choose the prettiest. It is a recognized custom, and no one thinks anything of it. The child so dedicated lives with their parents afterwards as if nothing happened, only she may not be married in the real way. She belongs to the god and his priests and worshippers. The house was very orderly and nice. I sat on the veranda and talked to the women, who were all well educated and so attractive with their pretty dress and jewels. They seemed bright, but of course would not show me their real feelings, and I could only hold surface conversation with them. We are often asked if the temple houses are inside the walls which surround all the great temples in this part of the country. They are usually in the streets outside. Most of the Brahmin temples are surrounded by a square of streets, and the houses are in the square or near it. There is nothing to distinguish them from other houses in the street. It is only when you go inside that you feel the difference. An hour on the shady veranda of one of these houses is very revealing. You see the children run up to welcome a tall, fine-looking man who pats their heads in the kindest way, and as he passes you recognize him. Next time you see him in the glory of his office, you wish you could forget where you saw him last. Sometimes we asked who the children are. How did the temple women get them in the first instance? We have already answered this question by quotations from the census report, and by statements of Hindus well acquainted with the subject. It should be added that often the temple women, having daughters of their own, dedicates them, and as a rule it is only when she has none that she adopts other little ones. A few extracts from letters and notes from conversations are subjoined, as they show how the system of adoption works. We are in trouble over a little girl, the daughter of wealthy parents, who have dedicated her to the gods and refuse to change their mind. The child was ill some time ago, and they vowed then that if she recovered they would dedicate her. The poor woman's husband was very ill, and the mother vowed her little girl as an offering if he recovered. He did recover, and so the child has been given. It is the custom of the caste to dedicate the eldest girl of a certain chosen family, and nothing will turn them from it. One child must be given in each generation. She is of good caste, but very poor. Her husband died 2 months before the baby was born, and as it was a girl, she was much troubled as to its future, for she knew she would never have enough money to marry it suitably. A temple woman heard of the baby, and at once offered to adopt it. She persuaded the mother by saying, "You see, if it is married to the gods, it will never be a widow like you. It will always be well cared for and have honor, and be a sign of good fortune to our people, unlike you. It is considered a sign of good omen to see a temple woman the first thing in the morning, but the sight of a widow at any time is a thing to be avoided." The poor mother could not resist this, and she has been persuaded. The mother is a poor, delicate widow, with several boys as well as this baby girl. She cannot support them all properly, and her relatives do not seem inclined to help her. The temple women have heard of her, and they sent a woman to negotiate. The mother knew that we would take the little one rather than that she be forced to give it to the temple women. But she said when we talked with her, it cannot be wrong to give it to the holy gods. This is our religion, and it may be wrong to you, but it is not wrong to us. So she refused to give us the baby, and seems inclined to go away with it. It is like that constantly. The thing cannot be wrong because it is religious. I heard of 2 little orphan girls whose guardian, an uncle, had married again, and did not want to have the marriage expenses of his 2 little nieces to see to. So at the last great festival he brought the children and dedicated them to the Saivite temple, and the temple women heard about it before I did, and at once secured them. I went as soon as I could see if we could not get them, but she would not listen to us. She said they were her sister's children, and that she had adopted them out of love for her dead sister. A lawyer was consulted as to this case, but it was impossible to trace the uncle, or to prove that the children were not related to the temple woman. Above all, it was impossible to prove that she meant to do anything illegal, so nothing could be done. As a rule, the temple woman receives little beyond bare sustenance from the temple itself. In some temples, when the little child is formally dedicated, she or her guardian receives £2, and her funeral expenses are promised. But though there is little stated remuneration, the temple woman is not poor. Poverty may come. If she breaks the law of her caste, or offends against the etiquette of that caste, she is immediately excommunicated, and then she may become very poor. Or if she has spent her money freely, or not invested it wisely, her old age may be cheerless enough. But we have not found any lack of money among the sisterhood. No offer of compensation for all expenses connected with a child has ever drawn them to part with her. They offer large sums for little ones who will be useful to them. We have several times known as much as an offer of 100 rupees made and accepted in cases where the little child, in each case a mere infant, was of special promise. A letter, which incidentally mentions the easy circumstances in which many are, may be of interest. K is a little girl in our mission school. Her mother is a favorite temple woman high up in the profession. She dances while the other women sing, and sometimes she gets as much as 300 or 400 rupees for her dancing. She is well educated, and can recite the Ramayana, Indian epic, and knows a little English. She spends some time in her own house, but is often away visiting other temples. Just now she is away, and little K is with her. Humanly speaking, she will never let her go. The education of the mission school is appreciated because it makes the bright child still brighter, and we know the home life of these children, and are glad when they are given one brief opportunity to learn what may help them in the difficult days to come. We have known some little ones who, influenced by outside teaching, tried to escape the life they began to feel was wrong, but in each case they were overborne, for on the side of the oppressors there was power. I was in a temple house lately, and noticed the doors. The massive iron-bossed doors are a feature of all well-built Hindu houses of the South. How could a little child shut up in such a room, with its door shut, if need be, to the outside inquisitive world? How could she resist the strength that would force the garland round her neck? She might tear it off if she dared, but the little golden symbol had been hidden under the flowers, and the priest had blessed it. The deed was done. She was married to the god. And only those who have seen the effect of a few weeks of such a life upon a child, who has struggled in vain against it, can understand how cowed she may become, how completely every particle of courage and independence of spirit may be caused to disappear, and how what we had known as a bright sparkling child, full of the fearless, confiding ways of a child, may become distrustful and constrained, quite incapable of taking a stand on her own account, or of responding to any effort we might be able to make from the outside. It is as if the child's spirit were broken, and those who know what she has gone through cannot wonder if it is. And then comes something we dread more. The life begins to attract. The sense of revolt passes as the will weakens. The persistent, steady pressure tells. And when we see her next, perhaps only 3 months later, the child has passed the boundary and belongs to us no more. End of chapter 30. Recording by Lawrence Trask, Mount Vernon, Ohio. InterfaceAudio.com.